Turn in your student book to page 742. We're going to look at the target skill and strategy that we should be practicing and looking for in our anchor text this week. We're also going to preview the topic of inventions. So our skill is author's purpose. As you read The Fun They Had, think about the author's reasons for writing the story. Does he want to entertain, inform, or persuade you? You're going to look for text evidence about the plot and characters as clues to the author's purpose. You can use a graphic organizer like this one to help you identify details that will help figure out what the author's purpose is. See how all the details point to author's purpose. Our target skill is question. You can ask questions before you read, as you read, and after you read. You can ask questions basically anytime. Asking yourself questions will help you to better understand the story and to figure out the author's purpose. You can look for text evidence to help you find your answer. This is a great way to monitor your understanding and make sure that you are fully reading your selection and understanding it. Okay, let's preview the topic. Inventions. An invention is something that someone thought up and built to solve a problem or to do a job in a better way. Often inventions are devices or gadgets like the light bulb or the radio. While new inventions might make our lives easier, well, they can also complicate our lives in ways the inventors never expected. The Fun They Had features a mechanical teacher, an invention the author has imagined for classrooms of the future. You'll find out whether kids of the future will like this invention. All right, turn the page. You can meet Isaac Asimov and Alan Flynn, the author and illustrator, and you can meet them here and read more about them. Here is, again, this graphic organizer for author's purpose, using those text details to help us figure out the author's purpose for writing. This is a science fiction story. It is a story that's set in the future, and it's based on scientific ideas. It will have characters who may or may not act like real people, technology of the future, and events that really couldn't happen in today's life, okay? Let's look at our essential question. How do inventions change the way we do things? Okay, we're going to think about that essential question as we work through this anchor text today and in video 2. So there are 3 things you need to do, okay? You need to preview the story. It starts here on page 475 and it ends on page 753. You are going to also predict what you think the story is going to be about and then set your purpose for reading. Remember, good readers, based on what they learn while they preview and what they know about the genre, will set a purpose for why they want to read something. So you're going to pause the video, preview, predict, and set your purpose. Now, if I were to set my purpose, I have always wondered what life will be like in the future. And kind of like what will people in the future think about our lives today? And this selection might provide me with a look at one possible future. I'm also going to look for clues about what the author wants me to learn. Okay, I'm going to look for those text details to help me figure out what the author wants me to learn. So you are going to pause the video. You're going to read starting on page 476 and reading through 453. Sorry, 746. I totally messed up my numbers, didn't I? Starting on page 746 and ending on page 753. Pause the video now and return when you're finished reading, and we're going to think through the text together. All right, now that you have read this story, we're going to think through the text together. Okay, I want to encourage you to please pause the video after each question that I ask and have a short discussion with your learning adult about what you've just read. Okay, so what detail from the text explains why Margie was surprised to see a real book in 2157? Compare the book Tommy found with ones that the characters use. How are the books alike and different? What does Margie's reaction to the subject matter of the book tell you about her? Analyze the text. Genre, science fiction. Many science fiction stories take place in the future. How does a futuristic setting affect what could happen in the story? What can you infer from Margie's mother's decision to send for the county inspector? How do the text and picture show that the teacher in the story is different from today's teacher? What does blanked out mean? Do you think that Margie hoped that her teacher would blank out? And what is the text evidence to support your answer? Analyze the text, formal and informal language. Does the inspector use formal or informal language? And how does the way he speaks compare to Margie and Tommy's dialogue on page 746? What makes Tommy feel superior? What is Margie's opinion about whether machines make better teachers than people? How might teaching machines of the future be better than present-day teaching methods? What does nonchalantly mean, and what clues in the text help you to understand the word? What details show that Margie thinks going to school with other kids would be fun? Do you think Margie's picture of going to school with other children is accurate? Analyze the text. Author's purpose. Why do you think the author wrote this story? What story details show his purpose? Keep in mind that this story was first published in 1951. All right, turn the page. You have just read a science fiction story. In The Fun They Had, the author imagines a time in the future when school is very different from the way it is today. His story can entertain, inform, or persuade you all at the same time. What do you think is his most important purpose? For clues, look at the details about the plot and characters. Look back at the beginning of the story. What does Margie say about school? Then you can use a graphic organizer like this one to help you figure out the author's purpose for writing. So, in order to find out an author's purpose, we need to look for details and examples the author gives about characters and the plot in a story. If you look at the first 3 paragraphs of the story, we're going to examine the details to determine author's purpose. And in those first 3, Margie's very excited to see a real book with pages that you can turn. And that seems really important. I think that is one clue about the author's purpose. Okay, now let's talk about science fiction. The Fun They Had is science fiction. It is set in the future and features technology that the author could only imagine in 1951. The story describes a mechanical teacher in telebooks. What other futuristic details did the author include to make this science fiction story fun for readers of the 1950s? How did the illustrators show the details? Take a second and pause the video and answer that. Now, because it's usually set in the future, science fiction writing can present technology that doesn't even exist yet. Okay, so that's what you're looking for. Let's look at formal and informal language. The author has some characters use formal language, which is used when giving a presentation. An example is when the inspector says, "Actually, the overall pattern of her progress is quite satisfactory." He has other characters use informal language, which is used when you're talking with your friends. An example from the story is when Tommy says, "He knows almost as much, I betcha." Okay? Remember the difference between formal and informal. And think about situations where it would be appropriate to use one or the other.